I'm Dean, I'm the dad.
I'm Laura, I'm the mom.
And I'm Krysta, I'm the daughter.
And together we are Family Plot. Well, that was nice. How is everybody?
I'm good.
Oh, not so good. I'm actually quite tired and I don't feel my best.
Well, this will not be our longest episode, so you don't have to worry about being on here too long. First things first, thanks to all those who listen. If you're one of our new listeners, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Want to say, if you want to help out the show, a couple ways you can do that. One is through Patreon, of course. There's 3 different ways to throw us a monthly donation, $1, $3, $5. I think 10 is the highest we go. And if you want to do a monthly donation, that's the way to do it. And if you're worried about, oh no, I don't want a revolving bill, even of $3, I get it. I wouldn't do that. But, you can always throw us a bone on Buy Me a Coffee as well. More important, though, is to share the show with new listeners on social media if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, of course, we ask you just keep that to yourself. Exactly. Thank you, dear, for chiming in.
Well, I can't let you have all the fun.
I appreciate that. Tonight, we really have 2 stories. First, HLN reached out to us and once more, and we have a preview of the coming season of Forensic Files 2. They called us rock stars, which,
super exciting.
Yeah,
we do love them over HLN.
Well, here's the thing. You flattery will get you everywhere with me, Yeah, say nice things about the show and I'm pretty much your boy. So, they let us preview the new season, which dropped the 31st, which was right as Shark Week ended. So, and then if you know me, I love my Shark Week. So, just as Shark Week was ending, new HLN, way to go. We will discuss the first episode that dropped this past Sunday. Also, we will dig into the sands of the Gobi Desert in search of a creature that locals call the Olgoi Kurkoi. Which means large intestine worm in the language of the locals.
Gross.
But most people refer to it as the Mongolian Death Worm. So, but before we dig into that, Krysta's got some weird facts.
Well, we wouldn't be us without some facts.
Krysta's facts.
And it's unfortunate that I didn't do anything any last week, so sorry about that, you guys. You probably missed it.
I know I did.
I didn't talk much last week.
No, you didn't. I missed that too.
The only time I talked last week, I think, was like
You talked all of 4 times in the show. 4 times. I counted.
4 times.
And it didn't say much each time. I was a bit worried, but you might have been a little intimidated by Sheila because you didn't know her and you're not so good.
Well, I'm just shy in general with new people.
Yep.
So that
once you get to know us, we can't shut you up.
Yeah. But sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing because, I'll be in the middle of a conversation with somebody and I'll be talking so fast that they can't hear me and it'll be like, stop for a second, please. Please stop.
Take a breath.
Take a breath. You're going to pass out. Anyway, today's facts are about sand boas, which I would like to thank my lovely father, for helping me with these facts.
Aw, thank you, dear, helping out our baby girl.
I just threw out some ideas for facts. I'm actually surprised because one of the things I suggested was facts from the movie Bad Guys. So I thought that would be what she went with, but no, she went with Sand Boa.
Yeah, I wasn't really feeling the bad guys, and
snake?
The snakes did have the takes. And while there's a snake in the bad guys, I just didn't want to do facts about it. I felt like a Mongolian Death Worm might be a little bit more similar of a topic to a sand boa, which sounds cool.
Sure.
Yeah. Sand boas sound very cool, and I'm a big snake fan, so you got my attention.
I like iridescent white snakes.
Yeah, and you've either got the albino snakes or the lacrotic, I forget, but there's albino, which is just an absence of pigment, and then there's a snake that's just like pure white, and I can't remember why. But yeah, they're awful pretty.
There are a bunch of awful pretty snakes. I've held a snake twice. So they were big. They were big, certainly.
And then I saw a gal on TikTok recently because, well, I wanted to start a TikTok for us. I just haven't had any great ideas on shorts to do.
Show them my art.
That's a good idea. We could do that. But I saw a gal on TikTok who had a beardy, like, and it follows her everywhere. It, like, if she's eating, it's there. Like, she feeds it vegetables while she's eating.
Oh, is that the one that I shared?
Could be.
That's so cute. Also, I made Mom and Dad food this morning.
Yes.
You're a good
Cool.
baby.
But now my back hurts.
I'm sorry your back hurts, but it was an amazing breakfast.
You liked it?
I did. I had toast and hot chocolate. I was happy. Bring on your facts, Krysta.
Okay, on to my facts. Today's facts are from Legacy
Hogle?
Hogle, I think so.
Hogle? Hogle? Hogle?
Hoglezoo.org.
Okay.
Hey,
If we're mispronouncing your site, please feel free to send us a message.
respectfully tell us how it's pronounced.
Yes, and we'll be happy to update this.
Because
You have credit for your work.
yeah. Yeah. I spelled it out, so they should be able to just go to your website and be like, oh yeah, this is cool. But yeah, there's a whole page on snakes, and there's 5 facts about the sand boa snakes, which is what we're going to be looking in on. So, fact number 1. When food is scarce, sand boas may live over a year without any food at all.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Now, when I was searching up these facts, I was like, this, along with the cockroaches, are gonna stay until the end of the world.
Yeah, you may be right.
Because if you're allowed to stop eating for a whole year,
Yeah, that's wild. That's a bit much.
sand boas are some of the smallest boa species on Earth.
That's interesting.
So,
There's a lot I could say I don't want to say just yet because sand boas are going to figure in our investigation later. So I don't want to bust out anything that's going to hit people to that early, but that is an interesting fact.
yeah. They are literally called on the website interesting facts.
Yeah.
The Kenyan sand boa typically hunts by lying in wait under sand and ambushing passing prey. Imagine it's like, when you will know when you watch a horror movie and somebody's like steps off of or puts their legs off of the bed and a hand just comes out from underneath and grabs them under the bed. That's what that was. Sand boas literally are the reincarnation of that movie, horror movie.
Well, they're an ambush predator.
Yep. The Kenyan sand boa has been known to kill small prey by dragging it under the surface, under the sand, to suffocate it, which I imagine is why they're called sand boas, because they live under the sand.
Might have something to do with a.
Yep, could be.
Fact number 5. The male Kenyan sand boa may have to dig the female out of the sand before mating can occur. They gotta take the female and go, ah!
Wake up, honey. It's time.
Here, honey.
Yeah, that would be something. You're walking along the desert and see like a snake like messing about in the sand and drag up another snake. And it's just going to be like, oh, this is bad. Nothing good happens after this.
Well, that's so bad, actually. Anyway.
Whew. Got another fact? Oh.
That was a heck of a...
That was a great fact to end on. I like that. Thank you, Krysta.
You're welcome.
I love you, baby. You keep bringing those amazing facts. That was great. God, another round of applause for Krysta. That was really good.
Also, I also searched up some facts about worms.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Lay them on us.
You want some facts about worms?
Sure.
Sure.
I'll take bonus facts anytime. Absolutely.
Bonus facts.
Bonus wormy facts. Yay.
Bonus facts for last week's to make up for last week's facts. Because I love you guys and I'm cool. Okay.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
An earthworm can grow only so long. A well-fed adult will depend on what kind of worm it is, how many segments it has, and how old it is, and how well it is fed. And Lumbricus terrestris?
I can't.
Yeah, I don't. My mouth doesn't do Latin so well.
We're just gonna go with that, and if we butchered it, I'm sorry.
If you're into science and know the kingdom and phylum of that worm and know how to properly pronounce it, reach out to us. We're happy to learn.
Will be from 90 to 300 millimeters long.
Okay.
A worm has no arms, legs, or eyes. I knew about the no arms and no legs.
Well, I think I knew they didn't have eyes. I haven't ever seen an eyed worm before.
I have. Right there.
Okay, but that's a cartoon. That's not a real worm.
Very nice.
There are approximately 2,700 different kinds of earthworms.
Wow.
Yeah, my favorite is, I believe, called the Gippsland earthworm.
You have a favorite type of earthworm?
Yeah, because they're like 7 feet long.
Oh, God, no.
They live in Australia, and when you see them, you're just like,
Is that a snake?
nope, that's a nope, is what that is.
That's a nope rope. That's a bigger nope rope than a snake.
Yeah, if you look up big Australian worm, you'll find a picture of one, and they're just...
Yeah, no.
That's good.
No.
And usually it's one guy holding like several of them, and you're just like, stop that!
Yeah.
Stop holding it. Please just put it back where it lives.
We're sorry, you have to burn your country now.
Don't do that. You're going to start war between them. Do not.
Well, they live in the outback rather than the cities, so we don't have to burn the civilized parts, just that part in the middle where no one lives.
People live there. about the burning. Why do you take everything so seriously?
Because when you see those worms, that's part of what it's like seeing a big spider. Nope.
I don't care how ugly,
Kill it with fire.
I don't care how ugly a bug or a worm or an animal is.
Just
We don't burn places down.
You're
They're
right.
outside where they're supposed to live. Leave them alone.
You're right, Crystal. My bad. Don't know what I'd do without you, kiddo.
I don't know. I don't know if
The world would break.
the world would break down in tears almost every day.
I know I would.
Like me watching old episodes of Critical Role. The waterworks are real.
Not sponsored, not affiliated.
No.
You wish.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, oh, I absolutely wish Critical. I would love to have some sort of sponsorship deal with them.
Bring Critical Role onto the show to talk about like ghostly stuff.
Anyway.
Anyway, 2 more facts to go. Worms live where there is food, moisture, oxygen, and favorable temperature. If they don't have these things, they will go somewhere else. Ow. That's meaning if Australia ever is not cool for the big long worms anymore, they might go somewhere else.
Let's not give them any ideas, shall we?
The worms aren't putting in headphones and listening
You
to our
don't know
podcast.
what worms do?
Unless they're aliens, I don't
If they don't have eyes, they don't have ears to listen to podcasts.
They don't have eyes, arms, or legs. What? But they do probably have ears.
Is that it, baby girl?
No. There's one more. I was just...
Catching your breath. Go ahead.
Yeah. In 1 acre of land, there can be more than 1 million earthworms.
Way too many.
Too many. See, Blue will go outside and pick up, like, dig in the dirt and pick up worms. Like, no! Like, I go out of my way not to step on worms or snails because I love me some snails. But, like, I wouldn't pick them up.
Snails.
No!
Yeah,
No! Imagine that thing crawling next to you. No!
Okay, can we not?
No! Ugh.
Yeah, it's called a giant Gippsland earthworm.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that.
Yay!
Extra fact.
Extra fact.
Yay, extra facts. Thank you, Crystal.
That's awesome. We had extra facts. Also, we're going to have an extra ad this week.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, it's an ad for another show. Yes, they've got a show. They loved the idea for our show, reached out and asked if we would trade promos, and I said, sure. So
Absolutely.
we're going to drop that in here in just a second. The name of the show is PNW Haunts and Homicide. That stands for Pacific Northwest Haunts and Homicide, if you're curious. The ladies hosting are Caitlin, who spells it a little differently than our daughter Caitlin, also known as Blue, and her friend Cassie. So I'll just let them talk about what they do. It's kind of spooky stuff, kind of true crime stuff, and well, just generally cool stuff. So here they are. Let them talk about what they do. Yeah.
Well, is now a good time to do that then?
Now is a great time to do that.
Hey, creepy people! This is PNW Haunts and Homicides. I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Cassie.
Together, we explore stories of the paranormal and true crime throughout the Pacific Northwest. For each episode, we do a tarot reading to help us gain some insight on the topic as we share the facts of the case and our interpretations. You can find our episodes featuring true stories from infamous cases such as the misdeeds of Boeing, as well as lesser-known true crime cases like the murders in Tunnel 13.
As well as our spooky stories from Pike Place and Raven's Manor on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you'd like to listen. Have a creepy-ass day.
Okay. So that was nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mom,
So,
Yes.
Oh, that wasn't our sponsors yet.
I know.
Okay, I do. I feel sponsored and traded, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel tradey, like,
You
like
can do it twice. It's not that big of a deal.
like comic books at a awesome convention and such.
Yes.
I want to go to Comic-Con.
Me too. So, as I said, once again, HLN reached out to us with a preview of the newest episode of Forensic Files 2. The episode was called Blanket Denial, which aired just this past Sunday, just in time for the end of Shark Week, which, that's a good way to get me into something. And it dealt with the murder of Imet St. Gwilyn. She was found with her hands bound behind her back with a zip tie. Her face was wrapped in tape, and she was wrapped in a blanket. Now, as we like to do, I want to focus on the victim. Imet was born in Boston, Massachusetts, and graduated high school in 1999. Afterwards, she went to George Washington University in Washington, D.C. to pursue studies in criminal justice. From there, she moved to New York, where she pursued a master's degree in forensic psychology from John Lay University of Criminal Justice. She was on track to graduate in 2006. So this is a fairly recent story. Imet and her best friend Claire went out near the end of February to celebrate Imet's birthday, which was about a week away. Claire hailed a cab and left about midnight, but Imet decided she wasn't done and went to the Falls Bar. Now, the Falls is kind of famous in its own right. It's where infamous preppy murderer Robert Chambers met his victims.
Oh, boy.
It was there she met Daryl Littlejohn. Now, Littlejohn had been hired as a bouncer, and they didn't inquire into his past much at all, and which is unfortunate because Daryl had several run-ins with the law.
Oh, good.
And around 4 a.m, because apparently that's when bars close in New York, that's when Daryl walked her out of the bar, and it was the last time anybody saw her. Now, when she was found, the killer had clipped her fingernails, preventing any identification from trace evidence under the nails. But police followed something called the Locard's exchange principle. Now, this was something I'd never heard of, but it's basically a principle that applies to forensic science. And it says that, and it's been held for over 100 years, it says there is always trace evidence at a crime scene, and it is the duty of law enforcement to find that evidence, reconstruct the crime, and arrest the killer.
Wow.
So, and this was the first time I'd heard of it, and I guess, like detectives and criminologists, this is something that they follow and have for over 100 years, which is odd to me that this principle is that old. Usually technology or something will come in and change things, but it's only given them more tools to follow this principle. Now, the blanket contained DNA from Reggie Harris, Little John's brother, who had died in 1994.
Wow.
The tape contained hair from his mother. The zip tie contained a drop of blood that turned out to be Daryl's. So it was, and people aren't
needed to clean his house. That's what that tells me.
Well, that or they don't know how the blood got there. He did get nosebleed, so it's possible it was from that, or she might have just fought and he might have been cut and bled. I don't know. But whatever, there was a drop of blood in the zip tie, just a single drop. And so, between those things, that's what convicted him. Now, using this and cell phone evidence, the police were successfully able to build a case against Daryl. Long story short, looks like several more episodes of true crime, forensic greatness on HLN. If you aren't watching Forensic Files 2, you should be.
Absolutely.
So, thanks again to HLN. I watched the episode and really enjoyed it. It was it was one of those, in the middle of it, you had done it, but you didn't know how they were going to get him. And that was kind of cool. I like those episodes where they know who did it, but they got to prove it. And really it was their adherence to the Locard's exchange principle, the idea that there's going to be trace evidence. And once they had, like, I'm sure his whole family wasn't in on it, but boy, they had his whole family's DNA in one form or another.
That is wild.
Yeah. So, you know, it all traced back to him. Yeah. And it's interesting that it sort of had a connection to the Preppy murderer case, which happened 20 years earlier.
Yeah, there's something there. I'm not sure what it is, but I mean, those connectivities, those connect the dot kind of crimes are just interesting.
Yeah, which is weird because Chambers is in prison, but not for the Preppy murder. He's in prison for drug charges.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of weird. All right. Well, let's take a moment for a word from our sponsors, and then we will talk about our main story, the Mongolian Death Worm. Hey, honey, how do you feel?
It's a sponsor.
Yay!
Wow.
And Krista felt tickled for half a second, and then she smacked my hand because I was tickling her foot.
Yeah.
Krista, why did you write on your leg? Summertime. Yes, it
Blue
is.
started it.
I see.
Blue did this first one up here. I did this. Because I wanted to see if I could write upside down. And guess what? I could. And it looks good.
Okay. Mostly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this week, the main part of this week's show. It is the cryptid known as the Mongolian Death Worm. Now, we were going to do this last week, but we had the opportunity to talk with Sheila, and I will not apologize for that. I felt like it was a good conversation, and she had a lot to say. And she sort of reinforced that idea of the Native Americans having more than one world, and that being a place where things could be. So I was really impressed by that. Plus, the hide the underwear joke is always worth it. So there we go.
Well, and Sheila's just good people.
She is good people. So let's start with the Mongolian death worm is described as being so poisonous, merely brushing against it can kill you.
Even if the poison didn't get you, brushing against the giant worm called the death worm probably would do most.
Well, now it was first brought to the attention of the West in Roy Harper Andrews' 1926 book, On the Trail of Ancient Man. He quoted a prime minister describing the creature as being shaped like a sausage, almost 2 feet long, with no head or legs, and so poisonous that to touch it means instant death.
Wow.
Most describe the creature as being vibrant in color, and reds and yellows are the most common descriptors. Which, let's just say that in nature, poisonous things do tend to be brightly colored. Like the curare, the frogs, the curare dart frogs. I don't know what their real name is, but the frogs they use to get the curare venom that certain tribes in the Amazon use to kill their prey. Those frogs are very brightly colored. The yellow and blue octopus, I forget what it's called, but that thing is incredibly poisonous.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's like those bright colors a lot of times are Mother Nature's like warning sign to predators. Like, oh, how pretty! But animals know that those bright colors can lead some serious business.
Right, to the point where there's animals that are brightly colored that aren't poisonous, but predators tend to leave them alone because of that. Yeah, because nature is smart. Now, most describe the creature, already said that. Now, Andrews made it clear he didn't believe in the creature's existence, but the people telling the tales certainly did. The creature is said to live and burrow underground, only coming to the surface rarely to feed. It travels under the sand, which can create a crest on the sand surface, allowing the creature to be seen and tracked. It can kill at a distance, it is said, by spraying venom, like a spitting cobra, or by electric discharge, like an eel. So, let's look at what we have here. We have a creature, travels under the sand, vibrantly colored, so poisonous to touch it means death, that can spit venom at you, or it can create an electrical discharge like an eel to stun its prey. Now, the Animal Planet TV show Lost Tapes contained fictional found footage of a couple of BMX bikers in a race across the Gobi Desert that were targeted and killed by one of the creatures. And mind you, as I said, that Lost Tapes is a fake found footage show. Yeah. Nothing in Lost Tapes is a real found footage tape. It's all manufactured. It's all Hollywood. It's why the series was eventually canceled, is just way too many people were buying it as real found footage, and it's just not. But the one thing that they had on the show, and I don't know how... Here's the thing that bothers me about that. I don't know how good sand would be as a way to distribute electricity. Like, lightning hits the ground. Lightning heads towards ground, which would include sand. But I don't know how well once it hits the...
I mean, it does to a point, because you end up with sand glass, which is what you get when light...
Yeah, so I know it has... I don't know. That part kind of bugs me.
Anyway.
But one of the things they had in the show was that the electrical discharge killed their bikes. It killed the power on their bikes. And I again, I don't know how much I buy that, because it's just...
You know, it's a little
Yeah, it certainly seems a little
Gotcha.
Now, formerly one-third of the Cryptid Factor podcast, David Ferrier, who has gone skeptical, went on a search for the creature with no luck. He discovered the sightings were at their peak in the 1950s. Again, that doesn't impress me so much, because I'm not sure where he was in his transition from someone's looking for cryptids to someone being a skeptic. But the last I heard, the guy was a big proponent of coincidence. And he's like, well, yeah, there's rare, but they happen. And that explains a lot of your cryptid sightings or whatever. And I'm just like, I don't think coincidence is nearly as influential as you do, but whatever. And again, Now,
tomato.
Yeah. So that brings us to Josh Gates when he was on Destination Truth.
Your
Man crush.
We haven't been able to talk about his man crush for a minute.
Well, when he was still on Destination Truth, which was on the show he did for the Sci-Fi Channel,
right.
He searched for the creature, including an overnight investigation into an abandoned Gobi village, which had supposedly been abandoned due to attacks by the Mongolian Death Worm. He found no evidence of the creature. Now, this is where we get to tie-ins to Krysta. Krysta's facts. Recently, those who have claimed to see the Mongolian Death Worm were shown the Tartar Sand Boa, which lives in the Gobi Desert. And many said that was the animal they saw. And it certainly shares some of the features of a Mongolian sand boa. As we know, it hunts from under the sand. It burrows under the sand and stays there. It drags animals under the sand to suffocate them. And it pulls its mate from under the sand. So it's got some things in common with Mongolian death worm, but it lacks the vibrant colors. It looks like a typical boa. It tends to be like gold or tan or whatever. But it's typical boa colors. It's not brightly colored. It's certainly not poisonous to any degree. It's a boa. It's a constrictor. So for me, it's a bit off to say that the sand boa is what people saw, because it doesn't have the behavior of the animal they were talking about in the 1920s and have been talking about for centuries. So while I think there is no such thing in the modern world as a Mongolian death worm, unless it's something that lives in that other world and only pops out occasionally, I think we're either talking about misidentification or an ancient species. And I think it's probably more likely an ancient species, like something that may have existed once upon a time that just doesn't anymore. Because it was said that they didn't need to come up to feed very often, which again, that's the tartan sand boa. Doesn't need to feed for even up to a year at a time. But again, it's just, why credit it with these electrical discharges and spitting venom? I think there had to be a creature that did those things. Now, maybe it was 10,000 years ago. Maybe it was 6,000. Maybe it was just 1,000 years ago. But even so, it's a worm. There wouldn't be much anything left in the fossil record, really, for the most part. You're not going to find traces of it. So all that's left is these tails. Right. You have any thoughts on whether it's ancient species or misidentification?
I think...
the deserts are humongous enough. There's no reason to think that there might not be some kind of giant species out there. I think that tails may have been, I think maybe akin to your big fish stories. There were sea monsters in the ocean, that kind of thing. But who knows for sure? I'm certainly not going trudging out in the deserts of the Middle East or wherever to figure it out myself.
Yeah, I'm not going to the Gobi for real. That seems like a bad plan. Krysta, you have a thought, whether it's an ancient species or just a misidentification of like the tartan sand boa?
It sounds freaking terrifying, and I don't... Terrifying, and I don't want it to be real, but I still believe there is a chance, even though it sounds a lot more like the sand boa. And it, again, like you said, it could be a old species.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm at with this, is that I think it's an ancient species that they remember from tales, but I think the actual species has been gone for quite a while. But because they still talk about it, they confuse it in the modern world with these sand boas that travel underground.
And are pretty harmless overall.
Yeah, and are pretty harmless overall because these tiny snakes, which, sand boas are smaller snakes, don't really have it in them to hurt people. I mean, I guess if one was starving, it might. I mean, if it got around their neck, getting it off would be almost impossible. But I think their attacks on human would be very rare, if ever. So that brings us to our final thoughts.
I thought that's what we were just doing.
Well, no, I really... Here's the thing. As much as I would love to believe in the Mongolian death worm, just because it sounds like a cool creature, and I'd love to see one in like a zoo setting where it's, in glass or something, and maybe they drop in a rat to feed it every now and again, and you get to see it like zap the rat, and okay, all right. that might be interesting. It'd be cool to see. But everybody who's gone looking for this thing has come up empty. And we have nothing. There is not hair. There is not fiber. There is not...
Okay, well, it's a worm, which doesn't leave hair or fiber anywhere.
But we just don't have any evidence beyond the verbal record.
Well, yeah, so we're talking about, and keep in mind that the Gobi Desert is one of the hottest places on the planet. So you're looking at possibilities of heat-induced visions of people near death and seeing things. And so, I mean, yeah, of course, there's all kinds of possibilities that could cause wild tales to come out of the desert. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was saying before. It's just there's so many different things that could cause wild tales.
Right, but I don't know that these nomadic people that live there constantly would simply make it up and be afraid of something that never existed.
Why not?
Because those tales are meant as a warning. And why would...
Or just something to do. I mean, look, people believed that there were sea monsters and that the earth was flat for a long, long time because people told these stories. It didn't necessarily make them true, but people believed them.
Yeah, but okay. There is this thing such as a giant squid. We know they exist. There's video footage of one, which fits in nicely as the kraken, and we know they do hunt closer to the surface at night. So it's possible one would attack a ship thinking it was a whale or a big shark or something. Because a lot of these wooden ships, not as big as you'd think. So that's possible. And we also know that they think that a lot of sightings of monsters were whales that were on their belly and had an exposed
whale member.
Yeah. Which in some cases does look very much like a monster.
Mongolian Death Worm.
Well, maybe not a Mongolian Death Worm, but it does. So there's something to those stories. There may not be actual sea monsters, but there's something to them.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
And
it's just probably just me because I trust a lot of people, and some people don't deserve that trust. But I don't have the heart to believe that people, especially back in the day, would have any sort of mind to make things up, or something like that, especially. Like, so it might have been a thing that they thought they saw, and they were just like, somebody died, this could be why. I feel like that could be a reason, if that could be a thing they did. But I don't have the heart to say, oh, this person lied about this, just because they could.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why I think maybe it's an ancient species. It is, it's something that they encountered probably not very often. And less often as time went on, but it was something that they were concerned about. Hey, you see this, go the other way.
Right, exactly. So,
I guess my final thoughts is I don't think that you're going to find a Mongolian death worm in the modern world. Sorry for those of you who are big believers. I want to believe in it too, but it just... It doesn't seem like that. Yeah, it doesn't pan out. I mean, with Bigfoot, Sasquatch, we found hairs, and they track to a primate that isn't in our genetic record. So we know we're finding something, But what it is, we just don't know. With the death worm, we don't have anything but the stories. And that being the case, I can't make a case for its actual existence. Maybe it's something that did exist. Maybe it's just a misidentification. But what do you think? You know, listeners, if you have a thought, let me know. Share it with us. You can do it in our Facebook group, or you can, let us know on Twitter, where we're active there. You can also check out our Instagram, Pinterest, and more. We hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you for listening. And join us next week for our episode on the Dyatlov Pass. Finally. We're getting to that. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.